Alright, welcome back to Duty's Daggers. Today I wanted to talk about knives that may or may not be irrelevant now that they've been out for a long time. What kind of sparked this idea in my head was I was looking through my knife collection and I took out a knife that I hardly ever take out. That's the ProTech Malibu. This is my Malibu. It's one that I bought at the California Custom Knife Show a couple years ago. You can see it says it right there, number 1750. And it's got this cool mosaic button and a textured green scale. It's the Wharncliffe one in Magnacut. It's a really nice one. I think it's probably the coolest Malibu I've seen besides like the super fancy ones. And when I bought it, I didn't even carry it that much when I first bought it. I mean, a handful of times. But I know why, and it's because we'll talk about that in a minute. I know why, but looking at this knife now, it's been out for a pretty long time, very long time. It was kind of the first button lock that was popularized. Now we have button locks galore. For a while, if you wanted like a button lock, the cheapest one you could get was the Malibu, and the Malibu was out of the price range of some people. And then Civivi started making button locks. You had those first couple Civivi button locks, like the Cogent and the Conspirator, and they were super mushy, but they were button locks, and everyone freaked out about it because it was finally a button lock that everyone could have. Now they're just a dime a dozen. But looking back at kind of the OG button lock, what do we think? Is it still relevant? Is it still a good EDC knife? I was looking at it the other day, and I was kind of struck by the kind of simplistic handle, but really kind of good-looking lines to it. I think it's a really good-looking knife. It's really cool how bare the handle is. The only piece of hardware are these two up here. You have this one for the stop pin, and then obviously the pivot. There's no kind of hardware back here at all on the show side. It's really kind of a cool, very clean looking knife. I much prefer this Wharncliffe one over the sheepsfoot version. I know they call it a reverse Tonto, and I think they call this one the sheepsfoot. I don't know. It's weird. This is a Wharncliffe, or I guess it's technically like a spear point because there's a little bit of belly to it. For whatever, it's a cool blade shape. I really like it. The ergos are really good. The action is really good. Now, my Malibu seems to be a little snappier than most other Malibus I've tried. For whatever reason, I got a crazy snappy one. Like, it's crazy. It's absolutely unfailable. It's almost as snappy as some of my snappiest knives. Flipper knives. It's crazy. I wish you all could try it right now. But I have tried others that are not quite as snappy. So, I don't know. I guess there's a range of snappiness with the Malibu. I'm not sure. There seems to be, though. But I think we can mostly all agree that it's good action, The blade swings very freely with the button depressed, It's on bearings. It's very smooth. The flipper tab, I think, is shaped really nicely with the jimping in the perfect spot to get that leverage you need. The really only downside for me is how thick the grind is, and that's really the only reason I think that I didn't carry it very much. It's just not as slicey as it could be. The blade stock's not overly thick. We're talking 124 thousandths, but when we measure behind the edge, that's 20 thousandths. Even gets a little higher here, like 22, 21 thousandths. Up at the tip, it's still 20. At the very, very tip, all the way to 24. And that's not horrible. Like, it'll cut fine. But I was always like, man, I just wish it was a little bit thinner behind the edge. It would cut so much better. It just kind of bothered me. And that's the case with really all ProTechs that I've ever tried. The two that I own now are both manual button locks, and this is the TR3 Integrity, and this suffers from the same thing. This is even thicker behind the edge. This is insanely thick. And it's had a new edge put on it, but there's 23 thousandths there. In the middle, it goes all the way up to 26 thousandths. The very tip, about 24. It's just so thick, man. So yeah, ProTech just kind of does that. I've thought about getting it reground, and I still might. Now that I've kind of been thinking about the Malibu again, I'm kind of tempted to do that. I don't know if I will. We'll see. I've thought about doing the same thing with this one, because this has really, really good action on this button lock. It's smoother than the Malibu. But they're really thickly ground, you know? That's just how ProTechs are. So, do I think it's still a good EDC knife? I think for every... Oh, we didn't talk about the clip. It's a really good clip. You know, pretty standard deep carry. It's on a flat spot right there. If you get a textured version one, there's others with flat or smooth handles. And it's also inset into the aluminum. So it's great. I really think it's a great knife. Just that thick grind. There's other cheaper button locks now though, so and some of them are really good. You know, they were mushy at first, and now I feel like companies are really starting to figure out how to dial in that snappy plunge lock button lock action. And I've tried a few damn good ones recently. So I don't know. I think well, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Do you think the Malibu is kind of irrelevant now that we have so many button locks? I'd like to know what you think. I still think it's a really good looking knife though. Now I got a couple others here that I think we can talk about if they're relevant still. The first one, we can go way back. This is one of the first knives I ever bought. The Ontario Rat 2. And I still have it, man. This is a very cheap knife. I think when I bought it, it was somewhere like $35, maybe $45. Nowadays, you can get some really cheap knives. Like CJRB has a couple. Like this one right here. If you get them on sale, it can be as low as like $25. It's insane. So this is an FRN plastic handle. This one you have. I'm not sure if that's actually G10 now that I look at it. I'm not sure. But you get like full liners. This one has no liners. I guess that's kind of really it. You know, it's crossbar lock versus liner lock. You get a deep carry clip versus non-deep carry. This is a very outdated clip, I would say. This is very kind of an old school way to do it. Not only is it not deep carry, but it's set way down here. I feel like most knife companies have kind of gotten better with clips. Not perfect, but better. Things I do still like about the Rat, I like the way the blade is kind of positioned up from the handle. It kind of looks cool and is great for ergos. I like the way they do the choke up spot. It's just a flat area here, really nicely choke up on. If you want to choke back, you kind of braced up against this little point here. And it's great washer action. I mean, really smooth washer action. It's kind of cool. You don't see a whole lot of washer knives anymore in the budget territory. Everyone wants that drop shot action now, even on budget knives, so everything has to be on bearings. But a nice washer action is great. Is it still relevant? I would say probably not. Just it's in D2. I happen to like D2, but a lot of people don't. The clip's very outdated. I think there's some really good options now. The CJRBs, they're making their blades really slicey now. Like the pyrites are super slicers. The full flat grind, the thin blade stock, they just cut really good. But there is a soft place in my heart for the Rat 2, just because it was one of my first knives I ever bought. Let's get out another oldie. Now this isn't quite as old as some of the others, but the Demco 8020.5. This was another kind of first for the knife community. It was the first time we could get a shark lock for under $450, which was how much the 8020s were, which were previously the only way you could get a shark lock. There was no more budget version of the Shark Lock until these came out, made in Taiwan, and it was a scaled down, smaller version of the 8020. Different blade shape, different handle shape, but you know, essentially the same thing. Just smaller and more affordable because they were made in Taiwan instead of the USA. It was very exciting. The hype was massive for these things. They came out in titanium, or no, they came out in G10 first, in either D2 or OS 8, I think it was, or OS 10 maybe. And they were very expensive. People were complaining, you know, or was it FRN even? I can't remember if it was G10 or FRN. But regardless, for that handle material and for that steel, it was like $160, I think. People were like, "What? That's so much money." But others like me were like, I don't care. I'm totally willing to pay that because the Shark Lock is so awesome." You know? Now it's pretty common. There's the Shark Cub. There's a whole crap ton of different versions of the 20.5. Nowadays, I don't think people would pay that much. But back then, yeah, I mean, Demco knew people would pay it because they were so excited to finally get their hands on a Shark Lock. Aside from that initial price, like I said, it was worth it to me. So it wasn't going to be worth it for everybody. But this is a fantastic knife. The stonewashing on it is incredible. It's still one of my favorite stonewashes. It's like a cloudy, just really beautiful stonewash. Obviously, you have the Shark Lock, which is an incredible locking system. I love the Shark's Foot blade a lot. It's incredible. All the deployments you got the thumb stud and the whole deployment. These are copper thumb studs I threw on here. I can't remember where I got them from, but they're copper. This is a little later one. It was still pretty early on, though. It was an exclusive somewhere, I think, in 3V and titanium. This was pricey, too. I don't remember how much. But, yeah, the ergos are excellent. You have the choke-up spot. Just an excellent, excellent EDC knife. There was the Shark's Foot or the more clip pointy, drop pointy blade, whatever that was called. So you had the options there. The stock clip I've never really liked from Demco. I always replace with a Lynch deep carry on all my Demcos. So there's that. Is this still a good EDC knife? Like I said, it's not worth now what we paid back then when they first came out. But the price has gone down a lot. You know, you can get a G10 basic 8020.5 for really cheap. I don't know how much exactly, but it was really cheap. I know that. I still think it's an awesome knife. But the thing is, it kind of suffers from the same thing that the Malibu does. Is it's really, really thick behind the edge. Let's measure this one. This is a factory edge. 23 thousandths there. 24. 26. 26 at the tip. That's so thick, man. You know, it cuts fine, like I said, but man, it could cut so much better. And it's a common complaint with the 8020.5s. They're just real thick behind the edge. So I would say so. At the right price, absolutely. Next, the Drift, the original Twilight Carry Drift. This has been out a very long time. There's now a lot of different versions of the Drift. There's the Drift Large, the Drift LCT. I can't remember all the names of them right now, but there's at least, I think, 4 different Drifts. This is the original Drift. I remember the first time I saw this, back when I first started watching knife videos, and I thought, man, that is such a me knife. I just love everything about it. I wanted one really bad for a long time, and it was out of my price range for a while. You know, when you first start collecting knives, you don't feel comfortable paying as much as you do now. Back then, it was too much for me. Until finally, this version became available. It's kind of like a brownish burgundy handle, and I thought it looked really nice, and I just bought it. And I loved it. This is an incredible knife. It's on washers, thumb stud action. One of the sliciest knives ever. Extremely thin blade stock, 85 thousandths. And behind the edge, we're looking at 14, 14, 14, 14, all the way. You might be thinking 14 is not that far off from 20. It's a pretty good amount. It makes a lot of difference. That added with the thin blade stock, yeah, this is an insane slicer. You have the choke up spot, which the other drifts don't have. This is the only one with a choke up spot, I think. I know the large drift large does not have it. So you get the choke up area, deep carry wire clip, frame lock, super smooth. You get the amazing quiet carry texture, which is one of the best textures, I think. Definitely one of the grippiest on titanium that I've seen. And it's completely rust proof. This knife can be submerged in salt water and it will never rust, any part of it. Van X blade steel. Every part of the handle is either titanium or a super stainless steel. So it's awesome, and it's awesome. It's totally awesome. I think it's totally still relevant. Absolutely. I can't think of a better EDC slicer right now. And there's a lot of really good little EDC slicers that are around this size, but this is I think still the best. Just that really thin blade stock, you know. Another really good one is the Civivi Cubit. That's another really good EDC slicer that comes to mind with thin blade stock. So there's definitely some other good ones out there now, but not a titanium frame lock that's around this size that I can think of. If you guys can think of one, let me know. But yeah, absolutely. And the other drifts are amazing too. You know, the drift large. This has only been out a year or two maybe, but it's larger. There's no choke up spot, but man, look at this. Same exact blade stock thickness. So it's just more blade to glide through that cardboard or whatever you're cutting. Still on washers. Super smooth washer action on both of these. The drifts are just great. I don't think they will ever be surpassed as excellent EDC knives. And that's it. That's my little list. What do you guys think? What are some other knives you think might be irrelevant now, or maybe are super old but not irrelevant? Let me know what you think. Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.